Good afternoon, Pankhurst class. This is your Thursday English lesson, and today we're going to be focusing on writing up our plan of our recount into neat. So if you haven't already started writing your plan, or if you haven't finished writing your plan, pause this video now and go in to finish that first, because you're going to need that for today's lesson. So you're going to need a new piece of paper, a sharp pencil, and your plan for today's lesson. Let's have a look, and I'm just going to go through some of the tips that we need to have for our recount, and I'm going to show you how to turn your notes into full sentences. So we're going to write up our recount using our plan to help us, and we're going to be focusing on what it was like to live as a Victorian child and how they lived their life in the Victorian period. Now, yesterday you watched this video, and I'd like you to watch it again just to refresh your memory of anything that they did when they went to school to help us with your writing or recount. I'd like to pause this video to go and watch this video on YouTube, and then come back to this afterwards. Okay, so hopefully that video refreshed your memory of the things that you saw, and hopefully you've also had a read through your notes that you've already written about life as a Victorian child, because that will really help you when you're turning it into full sentences. So this is our toolkit when we're writing our recount. And these are really important. And when you're writing your recount up in neat, the best thing to do is leave this on the screen, and then you can, at the end, you can check through it to make sure you've got all of the different aspects of your toolkit. So your recount needs to be written in the past tense because it's already happened. It should have adverbials of time and time connectives, written in chronological order, use of emotive words or language, written in first person, so I or we, a day or a date, informal chatty voice or colloquial language, contractions, varied sentence structures, a closing statement to reflect on what's happened, and use of pronouns to avoid repetition. So we can look back at this at the end. When you've written your recount, you can give it a little tick to check that you've put all of these aspects into your work. Now, I'm going to show you my plan. I'm going to recap what I've written for my plan. It's a little bit different to Mrs. Mers's plan, but that's fine. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to turn that into full sentences. So hopefully, I'm going to show you my screen. If I can find it for you, and then you'll be able to watch what I'm doing. So I'm hoping you can see this now. So this is my plan. Okay, and I'm going to model it to you. Just going to show you quickly. I'm going to go through it so that you can see what I've written. I'm going to make it a little bit more focused for you. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight different aspects of it, and then I'm going to write it into full sentences. So this is my plan. So remember, it's in bullet points, so it didn't have to be in full sentences. I've just got little bits just to help me remember, so that when I write it in full sentences, I won't forget what I wanted to say. So at the top of my plan, I had the day. That's already part of what was on my checklist. I had to have the day or the date. So mine is day 24. At the beginning of the day, so there's my adverbial of time or my time connective. And I've got a comma after that. We walked to school with Grandad, very excited to see my wonderful friends. Very excited is my emotive language, explaining how I'm feeling. And I've also got walked. That's written in the past tense. We walked to school to see my first person. So look, just in that first section, that's going to be my first paragraph. I've already included so many aspects of my toolkit for my recount. Then sat down in class. So there's my adverbial of time starting it off. I should have, I'm just going to add this now, a comma after that. So then I sat down in class. We were told to clean the slate before the lesson, and they got told off for using their sleeves. There was a child in the class that got told off for using their sleeve by a horrible old teacher. And I've done that as emotive language to explain the teacher was horrible and old. And I sat down in class. Didn't sit, I sat, so that's the past tense again. During the lesson, so now my third paragraph, A yo-yo was given to my brother. If you're writing this as the boy, you can say that you were given the yo-yo. And my poor brother got told off by the nasty teacher. So I've used emotive language here to make people feel sorry for my brother by saying poor brother being told off. He was made to stand in the corner, wear the dunce's hat, and his name was in the punishment book. And it made people feel sorry for the brother. And I felt sorry for him. So again, it's emotive language. Everyone in class gasped. Again, that's past tense. Everybody felt sorry for him. I'm going to move the video out of the way so you can see that. Next, Grandad came to show Zoetrope, and everyone was amazed. So I've got next, my adverbial of time. He came to show Zoetrope, and everyone was amazed. That again is the emotive language. And then at the end, I've also written my closing statement about having a wonderful day. I enjoyed playing with lots of my toys, and I can't wait for school tomorrow. Now, I'm not going to go onto this section today because I'm only going to model turning these sentences into the neat paragraphs, and then the rest of it I want you to try and do by yourself. Now, I'm just going to pause this for a moment. Okay, so that's my plan. So we're now going to write on my notes into neat, and then you're going to do the same. So I'm going to show you now how I'm going to do it to help you with your writing. Now, your plan, your neat write-up shouldn't include everything that I've written. So please make sure that you are writing your own information. Obviously, you can use parts of mine, that's absolutely fine, but make sure it's your own independent work. Okay, let's have a look and see if we can do this. So I'm going to move my plan up on one side. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. And we're now going to write it up in neat. So it's my neatest handwriting. I've got my margin down the side. And if you haven't got a margin on your work, you can ask an adult to, with a straight edge or a ruler, just to draw the margin down the side. That's going to help us with making sure our work is nice and neat. And at the top of my work, I'm going to write day 24. So I'm going to write day 24. And this is in my neatest handwriting, and I'm expecting you to do the same. And that's what day I've chosen to do mine on. Okay, now my first notes, it says, at the beginning of the day, we walked to school with Grandad. Very excited to see my wonderful friends. So I'm going to turn that, because that's going to be my first paragraph. So I'm going to turn that information into full sentences. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to leave a line, and I'm going to write at the beginning of the day. There's my adverbial of time, and I'm going to do a comma after that. My brother and I, move my camera over a little bit so you can see a bit more, walked to school with Grandad. And I've written walked, so that's the past tense, which is exactly what we need to do. Now, I haven't put this in my notes. I haven't put this is my notes here. I haven't put this in, but I'm going to add a little bit more information just to describe the walk. So I'm going to use some nice adjectives to describe it. So I'm going to say, the walk was lovely, comma, it was a warm summer's day, and the birds were tweeting beautifully. So if you've thought of some more information, some extra adjectives or describing sentences that you want to include in your work and you haven't put it in your plan, that's absolutely fine. You can always add it in. That's not a problem. Okay. Now, the next part says, very excited to see my wonderful friends is what I wrote in my draft. So my plan, I wrote, very excited to see my wonderful friends. So I'm now going to start off with, as we were nearing school, comma, I saw my wonderful friends and said bye to Grandad as I ran off with them. And that's all the information I put in my plan, plus the extra information I've said about the birds tweeting and the warm summer's day. So now that's my first paragraph finished. So what I've managed to do there is only these 2 lines here, I've managed to turn into that full paragraph. And before I move on to my next paragraph, I'm just going to read over it to check that I haven't missed anything out. At the beginning of the day, my brother and I walked to school with Grandad. The walk was lovely. It was a warm summer's day and the birds were tweeting beautifully. As we were nearing school, I saw my wonderful friends and said bye to Grandad as I ran off with them. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go into my next paragraph. So I'm going to leave 1 line and carry on. I'm going to look at my plan. So my next paragraph said, then sat down in class. Cleaning the slate was how it started next. So I'm going to start with my adverbial of time. Then I sat down in my seat, comma, waiting for class to begin. Full stop. We were told that we had to clean our slates first. Full stop. Okay, and my next part of my plan. For the lesson, someone got told off for using their sleeve by a horrible old teacher. Let's have a look. So I'm going to write one poor boy. So I'm using emotive language there. One poor boy got, and in my plan, I said got told off, but I'm actually going to change it to yelled to make it even more dramatic than I originally planned. I'm now going to say one poor boy got yelled at by a horrible, comma, old teacher. Just because he used his sleeve. I'm going to do an exclamation mark at the end. So I've got emotive language here because I said he's a poor boy who got yelled at just because he used his sleeve. So that part there, just because he used his sleeve, is showing that I agree with the poor boy and I feel very sorry for him, and I disagree that the teacher has done that for him doing just such a small thing like cleaning it with his sleeve. Because imagine how you would feel if you were cleaning your whiteboard in class with your sleeve and I yelled at you. It wouldn't be very kind. So I'm going to double check my second paragraph. Then I sat down in my seat waiting for class to begin. We were told that we had to clean our slates first. One poor boy got yelled at by a horrible old teacher just because he used his sleeve. Okay, I'm happy with that one. Again, it's written in the past tense. I've got verbs like sat, that we had to clean our slates, yelled, so they're past tense. So I'm happy with that. And it's also written in the first person because I've got words like I sat down. Okay, now I'm going to show you one more paragraph, and then you're going to try and write your own notes into paragraphs. So my last notes, it said, during the lesson, my brother was given a yo-yo. My poor brother was told off by a nasty teacher. He was made to stand in the corner, wear a dunce's hat. His name went in the punishment book, and everyone felt sorry for him because everyone gasped. So I'm going to use that for my next paragraph. So again, I'm going to leave a line. I'm going to go into the next section. During the lesson, comma. So you can see that I've started my paragraphs with different starters at the beginning of the day, then during the lesson. So really try to use that in your paragraphs. Somebody gave my brother a yo-yo. Now remember, if you are writing this as the boy, you can say somebody gave me a yo-yo, so you can change it, okay? If you're writing from the girl, you can say somebody gave your brother the yo-yo. Gave my brother a yo-yo, full stop. The silly boy, so that's me thinking that my brother is silly. The silly boy then began playing with it in class, exclamation mark. So that's me saying this is anything for him to have done. The teacher then told him off. And I'm going to add something here in brackets, which is showing sort of a chatty, the colloquial language that we've mentioned, a chatty sort of voice. And I'm going to add that here, and I'm going to say in brackets, and rightly so. That's showing that I agree that he should have been told off by the teacher. He was then made to stand in the corner with the dunce's cap on. Now I've got to start to feel sorry for him. That's what I said in my plan. So I've said that he should have been told off for playing with his yo-yo. I said rightly so. There's my colloquial chatty language. However, I would then need to start feeling sorry for him. So I'm then going to say, I think the teacher took it a bit too far by writing his name in the punishment book. So now I'm going to do my motive language. I felt so bad for him, exclamation mark. Everybody else is the last part of my notes that I wrote, because I had written, everyone in class gasped. Everybody felt sorry for him. So that's where I'm up to now. So I'm going to say, everybody else did too, as they gasped loudly, as my adverb, when she said she was going to do that. Full stop. I'm just going to double check my final paragraph. During the lesson, somebody gave my brother a yo-yo. The silly boy then began playing with it in class. The teacher then told him off, and rightly so. He was then made to stand in the corner with the dunce's cap on. I think the teacher took it a bit too far by writing his name in the punishment book. I felt so bad for him. Everybody else did too, as they gasped loudly when she said she was going to do that. Okay, I'm happy with that. So they are my first 3 paragraphs for my recount. And what I've done there is I've managed to turn just these notes here, 1, 2, 3, into all of that writing. So you're going to do the same. You are going to try and write the bulk of your recount notes into full sentences. I'm just going to stop sharing this on here for you. And I'm going to share back on my flipped classroom. There we go. Okay. So you've just watched me turn my notes into your recount. And I'd like you to try and do that for me, but make sure you're using your checklist to help you. So remember, we looked at this checklist. So when you finish, you can go through it and you can make sure you've included all of those things. Now, I think I've included all of my things. I've written in the past tense. I've used verbs of time and time connectives. I wrote it in chronological order. I've used emotive words and language, written it in first person, used a day and date. I used colloquial language because I used the section that said, and rightly so. I used contractions. I've used some in there. I've used various sentence structures, but some of my sentences are quite long. For example, I felt so bad for him was a really short one, and then everybody else did too, as they gasped loudly when she said she was going to do that. It's a longer one. So that's varying my sentence structures. Closing statement to reflect on what's happened is something that I haven't done yet, but that's going to be happening. You will add that onto the end of yours. And I've used pronouns to avoid repetition. So now it's your turn. So you're going to use your writing toolkit and your plan that you've already written to write the recount as though you are a Victorian child. Please try to do this as independently as you can, because it would be fantastic for me to see what you can do, not what anyone else can do in your house. I want to see your writing. Just do the best that you can. Try to write it as neatly as you can. And of course, you can take some ideas from my lesson or Mrs. Mers's notes from yesterday, but try to turn it into your own words. Good luck, and I really look forward to seeing your recount uploaded onto Tapestry. And I'll see you tomorrow morning on our live. Bye, Pankhurst class.